Your leg is broken, not twisted, not sprained, broken, the bad way, with the bone straining against the skin from the inside, and you are a long, long way from anyone who could help. There is no hospital, there is no painkiller stronger than gritting your teeth. There are no antibiotics, no clean bandages, no second opinions, and no second chances. Just you, a ruined leg, and a body that now has to decide whether you live. For most of human history, this was not a tragedy. This was an ordinary afternoon. It was simply what the world did to you over and over. And the strange and wonderful fact is that your ancestors kept on surviving it. Broken bones, deep wounds, crushed skulls, infections that would empty a modern hospital ward. Injuries that would land you in intensive care today were, for them, just another scar to carry around for the rest of a surprisingly long life. So how? How did people with no medicine, no surgery worth the name, and no idea that germs even existed live through things that should have killed them 10 times over? Start with the machine you are sitting in right now. Your body is, with no input from you at all, one of the finest self-repair systems in the known universe. Cut it, and within seconds, a cascade of chemistry seals the leak with a clot. Break a bone, and it does something genuinely strange. It dissolves the broken ends, floods the gap with a sticky scaffold of new tissue, and lays down fresh bone that often heals back thicker and harder than it was before. Catch an infection, and your temperature climbs on purpose, because a fever is your body deliberately turning up the heat to cook the invaders. It walls off what it cannot kill, sealing the danger inside a hard little pocket of scar so the rest of you can carry on living. None of this needs a doctor. Your ancestors snapped bones and grew them back for 2 million years before anyone had the faintest idea what a bone was even made of. The repair kit came built in.
There is a famous line, usually credited to the anthropologist Margaret Mead, though nobody can actually prove she ever said it, that the first true sign of civilization is not a tool or a pot, but a healed thigh bone. A broken femur takes weeks to mend, weeks in which its owner can gather nothing, hunt nothing, defend nothing. A healed one means that for all that time, somebody else carried the weight. Whether or not Mead ever said the words, the bones agree with her. At a site in Italy, a young man we call Romito II, born with a form of dwarfism that left him small and weak, lived all the way to adulthood in a hunter-gatherer world that supposedly had no room for the frail. In a waterlogged bog in Florida, a teenager with a severe spinal condition survived to around 15. In France, the Neanderthal known as the Old Man of La Chapelle had lost almost all his teeth and was twisted with arthritis, and still he lived on, which means someone was patiently preparing food soft enough for a man who could no longer chew. None of these people survived because they were strong. They survived because their people refused to let them fall. And slowly, cleverly, those same people began to fight back against injury head on. We like to picture medicine as a modern invention, all white coats and clean steel. It is far older and far stranger than that. In a Spanish cave called El Sidrón, researchers led by Karen Hardy scraped the hardened plaque off Neanderthal teeth and found something extraordinary. One individual suffering from a painful dental abscess and a nasty stomach bug had been chewing poplar bark, which happens to contain salicylic acid, the active ingredient in aspirin. The same mouth carried traces of a mold related to penicillin. More than 40,000 years ago, a Neanderthal in real pain was dosing himself with a painkiller and an antibiotic, with no idea on earth why they worked, only that somehow they did. That is not a brute, that is a patient. Then it gets genuinely bold. All across the ancient world, from Europe to South America, archaeologists keep pulling up skulls with neat holes cut clean through them, scraped or drilled through living bone while the person was still very much alive. The practice is called Trephination, and it is one of the oldest surgeries we know of, going back many thousands of years. Your first instinct is that this was an execution or some grim ritual, but look closely at the rim of the hole and the same quiet miracle appears again and again. The bone has grown back. Those smooth, healed edges mean the patient lived, sometimes for years, sometimes through the whole ordeal more than once. A man dug up at Ensisheim in France had 2 trephinations in his skull, both completely healed. Someone opened this man's head with a sharpened stone, and he got up and walked around for years afterward. We still do not really know why they did it. We know, astonishingly often, that it worked. And the ordinary wounds tell the same story from a quieter angle. When archaeologists turn up a prehistoric arm or leg that broke and then healed straight and true, lined up almost as neatly as a modern cast would manage, that clean alignment did not happen by accident.
It means someone splinted the limb, bound it tight, and kept its owner still for the long weeks it took the bone to knit. No textbook, no training, just the hard, inherited knowledge that a broken thing, held steady and given time, will mend itself. But do not get carried away, because for every wound that healed, there were many that did not. And the thing that killed them was almost never the injury itself. It was what came next. A cut is just a door. And in a world with no soap, no antiseptic, and no antibiotics, that door let in the real enemy. A scratch from a thorn, a blister gone wrong, a tooth rotting quietly into the jaw. Any of them could turn red, then hot, then fatal, as bacteria crept into the blood and the body's own defenses flared into a fire that consumed it. Sepsis. There was no cure, only luck, a strong immune system, and whatever a frightened relative could manage with a crushed-up plant and hope. The line between a survivable wound and a deadly one was often nothing more than which bacteria happened to be living on the rock that cut you. And some of the worst injuries the body inflicted entirely on itself. Childbirth, in a creature cursed with big-brained babies and narrow, upright hips, was its own silent battlefield. And every single person hearing this is the descendant of an unbroken line of women who walked onto it and walked off again alive. Through all of it, always, there was the pain. We have genuinely forgotten what that word used to mean. A shattered bone set straight with no anesthetic. A wound cleaned out with cold water and bare fingers. A tooth that throbbed for years with no way to remove it but a length of cord and a brave friend who would not look you in the eye. Every healed injury in the prehistoric record is also a story about a human being enduring a level of agony that would send any of us lunging for the strongest thing in the medicine cabinet. They had grit, and they had each other, and they had almost nothing else. And recovery was never a matter of days, it was moons. A serious break could mean an entire season of being carried, fed, washed, and watched over. An enormous tax on a small band already living right at the edge of enough. They paid it anyway. So why does any of this matter? Because the moment your ancestors began to care for the injured, something profound clicked into place. They had invented the idea that a person's worth is not measured only by what they can produce. The withered arm, the blind eye, the broken spine, none of it canceled your seat at the fire. That is the seed of medicine, of nursing, of every hospital and every quiet act of care that came after. We love to say the first humans were defined by their tools or their fire, but maybe the truest fingerprint of a human being is simpler and stranger than that. It is the refusal to walk away from someone who can no longer keep up. And you have inherited every last piece of it. You carry the same self-mending body, the one that knits a snapped arm back together while you sleep and barely gets a word of thanks for it. You carry the same ancient instinct that sends you to a sick friend's door with soup, that sits you down in a hospital waiting room at 3 a.m, that drives you across a city for someone in pain who can do absolutely nothing for you in return. Every one of your ancestors survived their injuries at least long enough to pass life forward. The bones knitted, the wounds closed, the fevers broke, and somebody, somewhere down that impossibly long line, set the leg, cleaned the cut, and stayed. Your leg is broken, the bad way, and the only reason you're kinda still here to feel it is that for 2 million years, your body knew how to mend and your people knew how to stay.